All right, so today we have the pleasure of interacting with Kevin Jon. He's from Germany. He's been a management consulting with Roland Berger and has recently launched a venture capital incubator. The objective of having this conversation is to just try to understand and get a sneak peek into the higher education system of Germany, compare that with India, and how does the two systems, how do they stack up against each other? So Kevin, welcome to this conversation. It's been a pleasure hosting you. Now, in terms of higher
Welcome.
education, the basic thing is that, in our country, we are kind of 1.3 billion. So there's a rat race to get into these top end institutions like the Indian Institutes of Technology, IITs, or the Indian Institutes of Management, IIMs. How's the rat race out there in Germany? I am sure with your economic prosperity and lesser number of people, is the path much more smoother?
I think it is certainly a little bit smoother than in India. It's still not easy though. So we have to work very, very hard in school in order to get very good grades and then be able to attend the most prestigious either state-owned universities or private
Okay.
institutions, private universities.
So, but one good thing about Germany is that there you don't need a pre conceived notion that you must have an MBA tag before you get a full-fledged role into management consulting. So I'll tell you how it stacks up in India. So there are these McKinsey's, Bain, BCGs who might recruit a graduate from a top-end commerce or a science school, but they'll keep them as business analyst. After an MBA, they are going to recruit them as an associate, junior associate. And the journey from a business analyst to a junior associate is not going to happen in most cases without the MBA tag. So are management consulting firms in Germany as well equally obsessed with that MBA tag?
They do like MBAs, but they are not that obsessed. So you have basically three entry points. You can enter after doing your bachelor's degree in Germany, your undergraduate degree. Secondly, you can enter after your graduate degree. So, for example, doing your master's. And thirdly, after doing your MBA. And everything is possible. For example, me, I joined with an undergraduate degree in business and got straight into the firm and started working as a junior consultant there.
Oh, so it's not necessary. So does the firm also fund your MBA in case you're good?
Yes, totally. So it's totally possible, and they will fund your MBA. And if you choose to do an MBA, but you can also, if you start with an undergraduate degree, they might also fund your graduate degree, so your master's, for example.
Oh, that's nice. So that far more generous. Cool. And what's the kind of typical salaries that MBAs would draw at these three levels there?
Yeah, so of course that's a heavy generalization now, but after your undergraduate degree, if you go for the top consulting firms, you will get around 60,000 euro, might be 5,000 more, might be 5,000 less, something in that range. If you go enter with a graduate degree, it will be around 10 to 15,000 more. And if you enter with a MBA or with your PhD, it's going to be another 10,000 more. So
So,
that's approximately the range that we're talking about. But that's only for the top firms. And then, of course, you have other players, you have boutique players, and they might pay differently.
so you have those top end firms as Bain, BCG, McKinsey, the MBB, and Ronald Berger, Accenture Strategy. Which, what else?
So
Parthenon?
I would say yes, yeah, it's a very valid question. So the firms that pay in that range would be definitely MBB. It will also be Roland Berger. It will also be a firm like Oliver Wyman. Let's say Deloitte, Monitor, Deloitte Consulting, probably also in that range, and maybe one or two more firms. Those are the firms that I would consider there.
All right. So, but then it's a good return on investment. So in India, you get typically like you start off with 24 lakhs, 25 lakhs per annum kind of a salary post an MBA. That's at a fresher level. So you do your 3-year graduation, you complete your MBA, and then these firms take you into a junior analyst role at some 25 lakhs odd kind of salaries, which will translate into $35,000. But then I think there's a lot of
Yeah.
purchasing power parity also adjustment that needs to be done. And how's the growth path? Because in India, in management consulting, it's not just about the entry salary. It's about the steep path in terms of the growth. You'll get a promotion every 2 years, else you're out of the firm. And you are looking at a vision where you become a partner within 12 years, 15 years. So is that the kind of growth part there as well?
I think it's very comparable. So I got promoted around every year or every 1.5 years. That's certainly it was good, but it's not. I was not like the top 1% overperforming consultant. I was in the upper range. Let's say 1.5 years to 2 years would be totally normal, would be a normal range to get promoted. And then I think in terms of making partner, that varies heavily. But you have people who make it after 7 years, like very
Oh,
fast guys, and you have people who need 12, 13, 15 years to make that big step.
and what are the kind of salaries those people command? Here it's upward of 1 or 2 crores, in fact, like more than two
Yeah.
lakh dollars.
Yes, so that's certainly difficult to say. They have a pretty attractive base salary, but they will have a much higher
Variable compensation.
incentive-based component. Yes, so a partner could make a couple of 100,000 euros, or he could generate multiple millions if he is, really
Millions.
bringing in big projects.
Oh, that's, I mean, and how's the work-life balance? Like here, it's kind of when I talk to my juniors, seniors from IIM Ahmedabad who are actually working in management consulting, life basically takes backseat for 5 days from Monday to Friday. It's work, work, and work. So how it's there? Is it far more chilled out? It's like completely struggling against deadlines.
I think if you compare Germany internationally, we might have a pretty bad work balance. So, from what I hear and from what I observe, when we compare Germany to France or we compare Germany to other nations, we work pretty a lot in management consulting. So normally, yes, you work from Monday to Thursday on the client side, or even from Monday to Friday, and you will have weeks that's like, let's say I always had 70-hour work weeks, so that was the normal. Sometimes it's less, if the projects are not that heavy, you might have a 55 or 60-hour work week.
And
If the
that's
projects are very heavy, it might be even more, like 80, even 90,
80
with
hours,
of
90
course
hours in
weekends
Germany.
involved.
Oh my God. One
Yes,
tends
yes.
to have a neighboring country like France, where they go 35 to 40 hours a week as the norm. But in management
Yes.
consulting, you do tend to have those extended hours. But weekends are completely chilled, is it?
I think most management consulting firms in Germany, as opposed to the investment banks, they try to keep your weekends free. But at least in my 3 years, if I look back, I had a couple of weekends where I needed to do some work. But usually that's, you do 4 or 5 hours of work and then mostly you're done. It's never like I never had weekends or multiple weekends in a row where I had to work for the whole weekend. So that doesn't really happen that often.
And what are the kind of projects that you get? I mean, are they transformative in nature? So, what happens that in management consulting, often you kind of sell a pipe dream, which you also know that it's also called GAS, gas, generally accepted shit, which you kind of throw onto the client and the client buys it, paying a big $1 million check, but they're sure that that's not going to help in implementation. So now the trend in Indian management consulting is geared towards that. Okay, you've told us that you're going to improve our EBITDA by 200 basis points. Okay, so this is your 5 point strategy. Now we execute this. So that makes you have more skin in the game. You can't just walk off giving a jazzy PowerPoint and say, okay, I've made my money. Bye bye.
Yeah, that's a very true topic. I'm going to be very honest. I mean, everybody or some people know that management consulting is also, it's to some degree, there's some bullshitting involved. It's politics, etc. Um, I would say it's what you told me. This sounds unfamiliar. So in Germany, most of the projects you sell are sold in a very traditional way, and you could, in theory, just sell your strategy and then say bye bye. I made my money. That's it. But in general, that's not what happens, because firms here are also, of course, aware that they need to provide more value now. That's why the traditional strategy consulting firms are always offering implementation too, so you
Yeah,
need to prove that the stuff you really advise them to do, that it's going to work at some point. And so the environment is definitely getting tougher, and it's getting tougher to, you can't just go there and sell bullshit.
yeah. So, because the word consultant also starts with a con. So it's
Yeah.
often a kind of a con game. You just say, okay, I'm going to get this improvement and this is going to be the throughput. But then, yeah, do implement it. And how much is the fancy for an INSEAD or a Harvard at Ivy League school pedigree for people? Is the path much easier out for them? Do they have a faster trajectory?
You mean people coming from the Ivy League in America to work in Germany?
Yeah, the Ivy League in America or the top-notch ones like a London Business School or an INSEAD or a I Business School as compared to the next rung of B schools. So is there a differentiation? So because in Germany, as you said, like in management consulting, quite unlike India, even grads and undergrads are getting good salaries and they're allowed to work. So then once these people from these top-end institutes come, how does the journeys for them?
Yeah, so it's definitely important to be at the target business school. So whether it's the Ivy League or schools like INSEAD, those are really the schools that the big top tier consulting firms are going to be recruiting from in Germany. So it definitely makes a big difference, and it's much easier to get into a good consulting firm from those institutions as opposed to from the lower level business schools. That being said, I always say you can always make up that disadvantage with good networking. So if you get to know the people at the firm, and if you're able to somehow get your CV into the firm through personal networking,
Yeah, it
that
works
is
here as
a
well.
huge, yes.
Okay, okay. Take me through a typical day that you've had in your management consulting.
Yeah, so usually, you get up at around 6. For me, it was always 6 because I like to go for a short workout in the morning. So let's
Yeah.
say I wake up in the hotel room somewhere in Munich. I go to the gym for like 45 minutes. Then I, do the morning routine, shower, etc. And then by 8:30, you had your breakfast. You're ready to go. You get into the cab and you drive to the client site. You usually arrive there by quarter to 9. depending on the client. So there are some clients that want you to be there very early, you know, so you might be there at 7, but most of the clients that I had, we were there at, you know, 8:30 or something like that. And then, you know, and then basically it's chaos, you know, because everything can happen. Like it could be that you're working on a PowerPoint presentation because you have an important steering committee coming up within the next days. It could be that you are doing Excel analysis, you know, so most analysts or junior consultants, they do a lot of Excel work. And also, what is nice about consulting, the third component next to Excel and PowerPoint would be client contact. So it's not like in investment banking where it takes a very long time until you are able to talk to the client in person. But in consulting, it can happen that, you know, you join a consulting firm. After 3 months, you sit together with the managing director of a
Wow.
global company, and you know, and you might not lead the conversation, but at least you're there, you can ask some questions, and you're supposed to take notes, you know. So those are, I think, the three components. And then when do you end the day? I would say, you know, maybe at 10, maybe at 11 p.m. in the night, you're going to, you know, shut down your laptop and get into the cab, go to the hotel, and then maybe have a tea and wind down and go to bed.
Good off. And what have been the kind of projects? I mean, in terms of when you look back, what have been the kind of big ticket items that you worked upon? So, example, restructuring, turnaround, EBITDA improvement.
Yeah. So I had three kinds of projects, or three big buckets of projects. The first one being highly strategic projects. So really where they designed a growth strategy for a multinational firm, and we're thinking very broadly about which new industries to enter, which new projects to produce, which new locations to build. So those kind of projects. Then the second one was digitization projects. So, for example, in Germany, you have a very large base of SMEs, right?
Yeah.
They are the backbone of the German industry, and most of them need strong digitization
They're all
support.
family owned in some way. They're family owned majority.
Yes, many of them are family owned, and they usually require a lot of assistance in terms of digitalization projects. So those were projects I did. And the third one is, you know, Roland Berger has a very, very strong footprint in restructuring and corporate finance. So that's their number one spot. And that's also some projects that I have done were about restructuring companies, you know, getting into mergers and acquisition talks. So I was looking for investors, had talks with different investors who, you know, were thinking about investing into companies that
Okay.
we work with as a client.
So now that is kind of helping you in your VC. Now in your next stint as a venture capital, all these investor connects are going to probably you're going to leverage them now.
Yes, right. So to some degree, of course, that was a very good experience for me, who's now looking to focus really on the venture capital industry.
So what happens with German youngsters who don't get into these top end 60,000 plus euro kind of salaries? So what are the other career paths which open up to them?
So, I mean, the opportunities are endless, right? If you really want to go into consulting, you will find a consulting firm that will be able to accept you. You know, you have thousands of small boutique firms, so there's always, if you're willing to put in the work, and I think there's always possibility to get into consulting. If not, of course, you can go for a multi
Hello?
strong knowledge foundation there, and attempt to do a like to do a change after a couple of years and try to go for consulting again. But you could also go, and I've seen many people do this, go for entrepreneurship. So,
Hmm,
either
that's the best one.
join a interesting startup and become an expert in some field within the startup, and then you might even transfer back to consulting after having worked for the startup for some time.
Oh, so there's a lot of options. I mean, again, it's a population kind of a thing because there are less number of people, more prosperity. So the path is relatively less thorny as compared to an Indian who is not able to cut. So we've got, the entrance exams like the CAT, where more than 2 lakh students appear for these exams after their 3-year graduation. And maybe 1,000, 1,500 really get into the top end institutes. The rest have to contend with the second tier or the third tier. So, like,
Yeah.
the path is, what are the opportunities for Indian students in Germany? So, at IIM Ahmedabad, I used to see a lot of German students also coming here for one semester in the exchange program, and they used to be really brilliant.
Yeah. So, in fact, I worked with a working student at Roland Berger who was from India, and he did very well. He was well educated, and he had one big advantage, and that was that he was willing to learn German. So,
Oh,
in many consulting firms in Germany, they will have like a 50-50 split. 50% of the projects are being done in English, and all the presentations are being done in English, whereas then you have 50% of the companies, especially if you work with the SMEs, they will usually want to do the projects in Germany,
oh,
in
okay.
German. Of course, it's better if you know some German and you can sell yourself by saying, "Hey, I have those language skills. Let's go."
Yeah. And you can apply basis an Indian MBA for a German management consulting thing, or should you come to Germany, study out there, and then you get a job there?
Um, I think the easier way is certainly if you come to Germany, study here at a well-known university, and then go on to enter consulting.
All
But I
right.
think the other way is also possible. So if you come from a top institution in India, the recruiters are most likely going to know, and you will get a chance
Okay.
to prove yourself in the interviews.
So then the employer is going to take the hassle of that, getting that work visa and all. I'm sure that's going to be quite a challenge now with Brexit and everything.
Yes, right. So that's a challenge, and that's why I say it's best if you have some personal contacts within the firm who will kind of
Vouch for
tell the
you.
recruiters, yes, vouch for you, tell them, okay, it's really worth it.
Yeah. So that's how. I mean, networking eventually, I think, apart from all the education degrees and everything that we have, it's about the people connect. As they said, the 6 degrees of
Yes.
separation. That concept is really quite a thing. And through Germany, you're also servicing the entire Europe Eurozone bit, or are there country specific practices that take care of it?
Um, no, so it depends again on the firm. You have some firms who are very international, do very international staffing. For example, McKinsey. You have some firms that prefer to staff very locally. So, for example, Bain. Um, with my time at Roland Berger, it was very mixed. So I would say I had nice projects in abroad. So, for example, I was in Sweden, in Stockholm. I was in Italy. I was in France, in Paris, and had the opportunity to go abroad. But I also had projects that were very interesting that were within Germany. And then, of course, it's all over Germany. It might be in the north, in the south, in big metropolitan areas, or in some hidden forests somewhere.
Oh, fantastic. I mean, it's kind of tourism coupled along with management consulting. You're going to extreme ends of the landscape and doing that. I think that's for these family-owned SMEs, which should have been located in disparate locations, cut off from the mainstream. All right,
Yes.
that's how it is. And what is the entry barrier, as in terms of do they give a case study only in the interview process as they do in the B schools in India?
So the interview process is very similar for every entry option. So whether you enter with your undergrad or your grad, it's going to be pretty similar. Most of the times you have one call with a recruiter, then you will get invited to a assessment day where you
Okay,
usually have 3 or 4 interviews. 3 of them will be case interviews, where
all
you will
right,
be given a case interview, and one will be a personal fit interview. And then it differs from firm to firm. For some firms, you might receive an offer already after this first day. For some firms, you might have to go on to a second day where you will usually have interviews with partners, so with the senior people within the firm, and they might give you another case interview, as well as they will, test your personal fit to the firm.
all right. So, final questions like, are Germans also quite active on LinkedIn? So, for example, if I'm in India and I want to apply for a job in a German management consulting firm, and I do not have, inherited legacy, can I approach people on LinkedIn? Would they be amenable to accepting connect request and then looking at my profile?
Yes, so 2 things I would suggest. First of all, people or Germans are very active on LinkedIn, but you also need to keep in mind that if you don't find the German you're looking for on LinkedIn, it might also be that he is on Xing, so Xing. That's kind
Acha.
of the German version of LinkedIn, and so some people are only present on Xing, not on LinkedIn. And then the second advice I would give is I get many messages on LinkedIn, and most of them are simply hi, or
Ah, yeah, that's a
can you
blunder.
help me? Can you help me? And can you get me a job in consulting? And that's simply not how it works, right? My
Okay.
advice would be to always try to help the person you're getting in contact with, right? Give some piece of advice or give them some insights or offer some help, and then after that you can always ask for having a coffee, having a phone call, having a Skype conversation, because most people are willing to help.
Yeah, it's always going to be some sort of a quid pro quo. I give you something in return for, I just walk into your life because you've accepted my LinkedIn connect and you want to use me as a staircase for your success. Somehow, a normal human being will not, a lot of them will not really be amenable to that idea. So nice. I mean,
Yes.
that's good for a start. I'm sure the viewers are going to have a lot more. They will go to visualize how it's life out there in management consulting. Kevin, thank you so much for the insights that you've shared. I'm sure we're going to come back with more questions for you. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye bye.
Bye.